Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Great to have you here. Today we are talking all about Rivian. Here on the Out of Spec podcast, we talk to everyone from experts to everyday people, but when it comes to a significantly all electric brand refreshing their first offering with a second generation, we all should be a little bit interested. What are the improvements that they were able to make? What do people who got behind the wheel of this new second generation think? And that is what Rivian did with the second generation of their R1 brand lineup. Today, we're going to talk about all the significant changes. And then a little bit later, Tom Malogny from State of Charge and Jose from Rivian Tracker are both going to come on because Tom had the chance to drive it and also owns a Rivian and has the comparison of his own other car, an F-150 Lightning truck. And then Jose also has a Rivian and follows every little bit less detail about software updates to Rivians and other news with Rivian and really keeps his fingers on the pulse when it comes to that brand. So let's plug in for all of the details and a bit of an interview with Jose and Tom in a minute. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes. Okay, so Kyle also got to go to this event, but he is in Istanbul, so he will not be calling in today. And I'm excited to talk to Jose and Tom about it. But first, I want to talk about Rivian, just in case you're not familiar. Rivian is an American electric vehicle producer. They were founded in 2009 by RJ Scaringe, and the company is it's all electric, and it's focused on the adventure side of things, and trucks and SUVs, as their offerings are, being able to go out camping and take on rocky roads and off-roading and be able to adventure. It was introduced as a very adventurous vehicle with this kitchen kit and all these camping accessories, and those were kind of walked back, which some people are definitely still salty about. But their flagship is the R1T pickup truck and the R1S SUV lineup. And now they have gained significant attention in the EV space. They have invested in their unique design and their software surrounded platform, and also have an emphasis on sustainability, which I think really aligns with the folks that they're going after for the most part for the market. These are expensive vehicles, and they have goals in the future with their next lineup, R2 and R3, to bring down those prices and help make Rivians more affordable. But we won't be seeing that until 2026 or something. So this is something that we can focus on now. So Kyle, like I said, did go to this event, and he even, of course, has a 2-hour-long video on Out of Spec Reviews if you want to check that out. But also he wrote this article on X, which I guess you can do. So I wanted to kind of touch on what he covered as the biggest refreshes to the second generation of the R1T and the R1S. The event was in Seattle, but that's where it was. And he was able to talk to engineers, designers, and executives, all in charge of this refresh. So the major changes definitely come to the battery packs. And so like Kyle says, there are more variants of R1 than ever before. 3 battery packs, 4 drivetrains, new interiors, and colors. So if we're looking at the pricing, trims, and availability, the R1T starts at $69,000 MSRP, and the R1S starts at about $75,000. Round those up, $70,000 and $76,000. Both the R1T and the R1S are available in the Adventure and the Ascend trims. There is a dual motor and performance dual motor available only in the Adventure trim, and then the tri-motor and quad motor available only in the Ascend trim. The second generation R1 is available immediately, with deliveries available 3 days ago from when I'm recording this on June 7th, 2024. Deliveries will begin with the R1S, and the R1T will follow after. As you can see here, there's a dual motor standard pack, dual motor large pack. These packs are referring to the battery packs, and then max packs options. So the new battery packs, I think this is when it comes to EVs, is something we're pretty interested to look at. Additionally, there's a dual motor, performance dual motor, tri-motor, and quad motor. So these motor options have significant performance upgrades that hopefully Tom will be able to speak to more, having been behind the wheel of it. So if we're looking at battery range and charging, 3 main battery packs available. The standard LFP, it has a 92.5 kilowatt hour, usable, of course. And then the peak charge power is 200 kilowatts. The large NMC 21700 battery pack is 109.4 kilowatt hour usable, a peak charge up to 20 kilowatts to 220 kilowatts. And then the max NMC 21700 battery pack has 141.5 kilowatt hour usable and a peak charge power of 220 kilowatts. Okay, pretty cool. Interested in these new battery packs for sure. And of course, with the LFP, we've talked about this before, but it's kind of beneficial to have this kind of battery in EVs. You can charge it up to 100%. They're just a bit more durable, and they're even sometimes a bit safer when it comes to, the fact that you have a big old battery in your car. So Kyle says it sounds like it will have the flattest DC fast charging curve with an update coming in around a month from now to decrease the 10 to 80% charging time to around 26 to 27 minutes from today's over 30 minutes. This is what we're told. Not sure. We're going to have to definitely test that if we get our hands on it. And the battery is assembled overseas and shipped as a module to Normal, Illinois, where these Rivians are made. So no tax credit eligibility on a purchase due to that LFP being made overseas and then shipped in. Like Kyle says, being LFP, you can kind of beat the crap out of the battery with an increased cycle performance and minimal degradation. However, the downside could be a more temperature-sensitive pack to charging in extreme cold. Okay. Just precondition ASAP on a way to a DC fast charging station. That is Kyle's advice. Okay, for the Max Pack, we've talked about this before on the podcast as well, and how this was like a $10,000 price difference if you got the Max Pack, but was it worth it? A lot of people said no, it wasn't. Some people said yes, it was. I think it depends on your use case. You can listen back to old podcasts. If you just search Out of Spec Podcast, Max Pack, to listen to some in-depth discussions that Kyle had with Skylar from Rivian Stories on that. And then we also talked to Lacey from Misco Electric because she has a Rivian with a Max Pack. So Kyle says this sounds fairly carried over from before when it comes to capacity and performance with the Max Pack. It's using a Samsung 53G NMC cell. The enclosure now utilizes large high-pressure die casting, not only to simplify manufacturing, but also to reduce mass, as Kyle says. And there's also some thermal improvements that may allow slightly longer duration charging before thermals derate. But time will tell, of course, for our testing. We never take something at face value, but as Kyle says here, it doesn't seem like this is a very extreme change to the Max Pack option from before. The large pack is confusing, as Kyle said, so I'm definitely going to use his words when we talk about this. Previously, the large pack was the 50G NMC from Samsung, and it had the energy capacity of around 135 kilowatt hours gross. Now this pack has a stated usable energy content of just over 109 kilowatt hours. So is this a software limited Max Pack, or did they take the modules out? We won't know until Kyle says we analyze the weight, the voltage range, the charging curve of the large pack R1S to be able to compare and really figure that out, unless we get answers directly from Rivian. Not so sure that we will. In all materials for NMC R1S, there's only the mention, in all materials for NMC R1, so whether it's the R1T or the R1S, there's only mention of the 53G cell now being used, and the old 50G cell from the previous large pack isn't mentioned anywhere. So if Kyle had to guess, this sounds like a software limited Max Pack, but just a guess, we're not sure, just kind of speculating here. The range, what about range? We love range in EVs. So the range is varying from 258 miles to 420 miles on a single charge, depending on which configuration you have, which battery. And the R1T dual performance and dual motors have 420 miles with a Max Pack, but the second generation is the most efficient truck on the market. Pretty cool. The R1S dual and performance dual motors has 410 miles with a Max Pack, and the second generation R1S is the longest range EV SUV on the market today. DC fast charging at both CCS native and NACS, or J3400 standard with an adapter, will enable charging from 10 to 80% in around 30 to 41 minutes, depending on the battery. They say it'll add 140 miles of range in about 20 minutes. Of course, that's all dependent on the conditions. They are referencing this adapter. As you might remember, Rivian has access to the Tesla supercharger network, but they have to have an adapter. Otherwise, if you pull up to a Magic Dock, which is a Tesla station with a native adapter built in, you can charge there no matter what kind of CCS vehicle you have. But to be able to charge on the J3400, the NACS connectors that are just the Tesla ones, you have to have this adapter. Right now, Ford and Rivian are the only ones with public access to this and who will have the adapters. Of course, there are adapters that are sold third party, but the back end is that Tesla, the supercharger network, is allowing certain vehicles to plug in. You can't just plug in any old CCS vehicle into a supercharger, even if you have an adapter, and expect to get a charge. Okay. There's no native NACS port on the refresh, but Kyle heard rumors of it being updated into the vehicle around the end of this year, 2024. We've heard that 2025 would be the year for most EVs to come out with the native NACS port. But it's been slow going. We haven't seen a huge rollout of adapters, nor a ton of other automakers yet allowed onto the supercharger network. So Rivian confirmed that they are exploring additional suppliers for the adapter and ways to speed up getting adapters to their customers. Interesting. What about the powertrain? So all variants are all-wheel drive, either dual, tri, or quad motors. This is great because Rivian is all about adventure. And when I think of adventure, I think of four-wheel or all-wheel drive. There's more about suspension as well, but the electrical architecture is interesting, and I wanted to touch on this. There is an entirely new in-house electrical architecture system for the new R1 lineup. While most users won't care or really even notice, as Kyle writes, the ease of manufacturing, increase in compute power, and the headroom this unlocks for future updates is exciting for the nerds like us. Additionally, there are new aesthetic options, and these are new colors, new trims, new wheel choices. So that will be interesting. There's also the Rivian Autonomy Platform. It's an introduction of advanced autonomous driving capabilities. We'll be able to see what Rivian does there. And also interior upgrades, improved materials, new tech features like an electrically tinting roof and enhanced audio systems. And then also something like the heat pump, improved wireless charging, and an RGB light bar. So the heat pump is something that we talk about. So I will cover that really quick. So there's a heat pump with heat scavenging, and this is pretty great. That's a lot of basically energy that could be wasted, this heat, but they moved the compressor forward around a redesigned front trunk to reduce the NVH as well. So the heat pump won't be so loud. It's still a quiet thing, which is great about EVs. I will always harp on how much I love how quiet EVs are. And it should also help with increased heating and cooling power. So the more efficient it is with a heat pump, the better. So that's exciting. All right, I went over a lot of specs. I talked a lot. I'm ready to pass the microphone over to Jose and Tom and talk about what they think of all these updates. I just wanted to make sure that we got a lot of the specs in before diving into the conversation. Of course, be sure to read this whole article for yourself or whatever anyone else has written about it. Batteries Included podcast that goes live every Friday. They talked about it, so you can feel free to go back and watch that. And of course, Kyle has this 2-hour-long YouTube video on the R1 lineup second generation refresh. So definitely check those out. But also, thank you for plugging in over here on the Out of Spec podcast. Okay, everyone. Like I said, we have Tom Malogny from State of Charge and Jose from Rivian Tracker today on the podcast to talk about the changes to the second generation of the Rivian R1 lineup. Tom, you actually got an experience behind the wheel along with Kyle. And then I think you got to drive a little bit more than Kyle too. And then Jose, I know you have thoughts about these changes. I want to hear if y'all think there are significant improvements, any confusing changes, anything that you are still waiting to see. Let's talk about it. So, Jose, you've been on the podcast a good bit recently, so great to see you again. But Tom, it has been a while since we had you on the Out of Spec podcast, so welcome back to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, last time you were here, Tom, you talked about the safety of installing at-home chargers and how you can DIY it, but there's a lot of things that people forget, that they need to double check, that perhaps we're not aware of when everyone's kind of installing these new chargers in their homes. So I'll link that. You're definitely an expert there. If you can see behind Tom right now, if you're tuning in on YouTube, how many chargers do you have behind you, or EVSEs?
So
what's in view is probably 25 or so, but that's like maybe a quarter of what I have in my garage. I have probably 100,
Oh my God.
maybe a little more than 100 different units here in the garage to review and that I've accumulated over the years. So I've pretty tested. I used to be able to say that I've tested and used every charger on the market. I know we call them EVSE chargers. I've given up the EVSE battle. I was a proponent of that years ago, where I would say, no, it's EVSE, but everybody calls them chargers. Even the companies that sell them call them chargers now. Go to every website. I know that's not technically correct. They are EVSE, but I've given in and said, you know what? I'm going to call them what people recognize them, even though it might be technically wrong. But I used to have every single one on the market, but now there's probably 300 or 400 different units available today, with like the influx of new units coming in from Asia. So I can't keep up anymore, but I've got a good portion of them here. I would imagine that my garage probably has more of a variety of charging equipment than any place in the country, I would think.
Truly, I don't know anyone with quite a lineup like that. And you are, I mean, of course you're testing them, but you also have a Ford F-150 Lightning, but also a Rivian. And Jose, you also have a Rivian. So you're kind of, I mean, we're all interested in what Rivian's going to do, but you have this direct hands-on experience with what was R1 originally, and then now what this second generation will be. So maybe we'll start with you, Tom, but maybe both of y'all. So basically, Rivian, the last big update they had was R2, R3, R3X, these new lineups that are coming in the future. Should be more affordable, definitely are different looking than what they have right now, but smaller, different shapes even. And, that's far off in the future. So we knew they would have to give us something to hold us over for the time being. Tom, do you think the R1 refresh second generation is enough to hold you over for the time being while we wait for R2, R3, R3X, etc.?
Yeah, no, I personally do. There are some things I wish they had also done, but this, you really can't call it a refresh, which going into the first drive of this new drive event, I was wondering, why are they calling it second generation? Because it's only been out for 2 years. How much could they have done? But then after really talking to the engineers and the different Rivian representatives and seeing to what extent that they're modifying the original vehicle, the average owner might look at it and not really know the difference, because it really doesn't look much different, but they made some really big changes under the skin. So I think it's a legit second gen. And, I'm surprised they were able to accomplish so much in, like I said, 2 years. The R1S, I don't even think it's been out for 2 years at this point, but right on the edge of that. So yeah, they did a lot.
What about you, Jose? What do you think?
Tom, I agree with you. I initially, I was like, oh, this is more like a 1.5 update, right? Like, it's not necessarily like second generation, but truth be told, everything they've been able to accomplish under the skin and bones of the vehicle, and being able to finally, get agreements in place. Obviously, they launched a vehicle during a global pandemic, right? Like, there was a lot of things that really hampered, Rivian in being able to successfully produce a vehicle at a profit, right? And Rivian is really pushing hardcore to Q4 profitability, right, of this year, and being able to accomplish everything they've done with this refresh and the factory shutdown back in April to streamline the process and cut costs. This is a truly good second generation vehicle that is like people will be happy and proud to own.
Okay, I think we hear that a lot, which is like Rivian takes what they have, they improve on it, they update the truck or the SUV, the R1S or the R1T, the software, and they're pretty like quick with their changes. And one thing that also people love about Rivian is that it is the adventure vehicle, and it does truck things pretty well. You can go off-roading, you can go camping, you can tow, although Kyle says he'll like never tow with his Rivian again after towing across the country, because of course it's harder to tow with an electric vehicle. But I also want to talk to you, Tom, about like actually driving it, because there were some performance features that maybe differentiate it from the previous generation, as you're saying, maybe not quite a huge leap, but they are changes. what did you think about actually driving it and compared to what you know?
So I did most, we only had one day, really a couple of hours to really get into it with the vehicle. And so I elected to take most of my driving on road. To no surprise of you, Kyle went the opposite way and did the off-road course for the majority of the day, which is a lot more fun, I admit. But I really wanted to see how the R1S drove on the road, because one of the biggest criticisms that I have of my R1S, and I also owned an R1T for about 8 months. I had the R1T when my R1S reservation came in. I sold the R1T and bought the R1S. So I've owned both vehicles. And the biggest difference is in the ride quality. The R1S, I mean, there's so many things that I love about it. It's a fantastic vehicle. It drives like the ride quality is like my 83 Tercel, not a $90,000 premium SUV. It doesn't handle bumps. It doesn't go over road irregularities well. The road harshness, you feel it through the vehicle. You sit in the back seat, you get bounced around. So that was the big miss. And it was surprising to me because the R1T behaves much better than the R1S. I wouldn't think that there'd be that big of a delta between the two vehicles. And while we love our R1S, and I've said this probably so many times, people are going to be like, Tom, stop saying it. When we go on road trips, my wife and I, she always says, let's take the Lightning. She doesn't want to take the R1S, which, it's a $90,000 premium SUV. You would think, who wouldn't want to go on a ride with that? But the Lightning is so much quieter. It's so much more compliant. It's smoother. It's a better driving experience for long road trips. The R1S will run circles around it off road, and even on a track. It would toast the Lightning. But for just smooth, comfortable, quiet, which, to be honest with you, most owners that are buying premium SUVs, electric or combustion, they're much more concerned with the riding comfort and whole driving experience than they are with ripping it around a track or, taking it off road and driving over, all kind of, rivers and stuff like that. So in that regard, Rivian came up short, and they made big advancements in that with the R1. It's still not where it should be, but they upped it 2 or 3 levels from where it was previously. If I would to give it a D or a D minus before, it's at a C plus or B minus now. It's still not an A, but they made big steps forward with ride comfort. The NVH is better. There's less wind noise. So in my opinion, that's the biggest difference that I found as an R1S owner. It does drive a lot better on road.
I think that's really significant because the majority of people, even if you like to go off-roading, you're using it to commute or run errands or go on road trips, and that comfort is key. And to be able to step that up, it sounds like they're at least passing on the grade scale, but not perfect. But I do think that really is super important. Like, yeah, these are adventure vehicles, but if you're not comfortable in the ride, then, what does it matter? And then also they have these battery options. So the 3 battery options with varying capacities and performance characteristics, where they had the max pack before and the large pack, and we were kind of not so sure about the value of the max pack generally. Some people have different opinions, but Jose, what about now? What do you think about the battery options, and also what might be the most popular for users and why? And what do you think about the changes there?
I had a conversation with Kyle on the phone about this, and I think he and I both agreed that the standard battery pack that's LFP is really truly going to be probably the winner for most people. In my opinion, I mean, you're going to get, this is still to be determined, right? Because we haven't had a chance. I know like out of Spec hasn't had a chance to do, efficiency testing and charging tests, but if it holds true to what the engineers have said, right, it will hold a charge much longer, right? It will hold that peak charging rate much higher. But of course, not like the new large / max pack, because it is still to be determined whether or not the max pack is the large pack is a max pack that is software limited. I've asked the team at Rivian, and they are like, we're not ready to talk about that yet, which is interesting. And I asked Kyle the same thing. He goes, yeah, they wouldn't confirm it to me. But the max pack, right, being able to get 420 miles out of that is going to be like stunning. Like that's really, really good. And I think most people will probably go for, like, if you're going to spend that much money, the max pack will probably be the route to go. The question really does become, how does it handle charging, right? Are the thermals better? Will we get, obviously it's peaked at 220 kilowatts, but like, will that hold better, right? That's really going to make the difference. But I think for most people, if you're road tripping, if you're just day-to-day stuff, the standard LFP is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, you can definitely beat the LFP up more. You can handle a bit more in terms of the EV charging, and has better thermals, right? I think it's interesting that they've, so the range now is 420 as best. And I've had people be like, well, the second EVs get over 400 miles of range, I'm going for it. But it's still at this really high price point. So I'm not sure if, also the price has to come down and the range, but it looks like we're making our way there a little bit more. Tom, what do you think about the battery? Anything there that really stood out, or, kind of expected that they might diversify a little bit in this way?
Well, a couple things. Jose touched on the point that it's interesting that the standard and Mac and large packs now have lower capacity than previously. So, and we don't know if it's just software limited, and if it's software limited, the sole reason for that was to make the max pack look like a better value, because we talked about this extensively on our podcast. You guys probably talked about it here, Francie, the fact that there just wasn't a big enough delta between large pack and max pack to make it worth the value. Well, how do you open up that delta? One of two things has to happen. The max pack has to have more range, or the large pack has to have less range. And it looks like the easier way to do it is to make the large pack have less range. And that's what Rivian did. And is it just a software unlock? Whereas 2 years down the road, large pack owners are going to be offered, hey, for $5,000, we'll unlock another 20 kilowatt hour or whatever it is, 10 kilowatt hour of capacity, or better yet, do they not offer that? But as the pack degrades, do they gradually software open up more of the pack so that you don't have, range degradation, which, that'd be awesome. I mean, if that was the case, but, it's kind of weird that, that's now you've got to get less range from the standard and the Mac and the large in order for the max to look good. Cause it didn't look good before. When it came out, it was a very expensive option. And I think Kyle was the first one to even road test it and be like, you're getting 15 more miles for $10,000 or whatever it was. I don't have the exact numbers, but it wasn't worth it. But in any event, so that's my thought, Francie. As far as the LFP, it's great that they're offering LFP. I really want to see what the range is on that. Again, it's still a premium electric vehicle. It's still going to cost a lot. I think the base R1S is what, 66, what is it, 69?
R1S is 75.9.
Yeah, the R1S is 75.9. So, you spend, and that's base price, no options. So you're going to spend, figured $80,000. If you spend $80,000, is that base pack enough? You want to spend that much money for a car and not have a solid 300 miles of range? I don't know. We're nerds. Like, we talk about, Jose and Kyle and I talk about, it's going to have a flatter charging curve. Yeah. Nobody gives a shit about that.
No, they don't. They don't.
They really don't. We do.
They don't.
So it's funny that, I don't know. I don't know what the right one is going to be. I know I'm happy that they have the LFP option now, and more options, the better. You've got the 3 different packs. You've got the 3 different models, the dual motor, the tri-motor, the quad motor. With 3 different packs. I don't know. Is it too many options, Jose? Do you think it's going to confuse customers? Like, which battery?
Yeah.
What's the difference between LFP and this NMC? Why are they making me ask this? They don't ask me, what fuel I want. Well, actually, they do. You could buy diesel or gas. Or that was a bad analogy.
But
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. And sorry, Francie. But I was gonna
Go
say, like,
ahead.
exactly, like, as information started coming out for the refresh prior to them announcing it, I started getting details and data on a lot of configuration options. Right, it was just a lot of options, and then they announce it, and it comes out, and holy cow, everything got really complicated. Right, like suddenly there are a lot of options, and it's confusing, right? And the fact, and this is going beyond just battery and motor configuration. We're talking about interior color options, wheels, right? Certain things are limited to certain vehicles or certain variants, right? Like it really, like, I'm putting together a chart that kind of tells exactly, what is available for what, because people are confused. I've had people reach out and go, wait, so you're telling me I can't get like these 20-inch wheels on this variant because it's only available on this one? And it's like, yeah, that's what Rivian decided to do, right? Like, or, like, it's just a ridiculous amount of options. And exactly what you said, like most people are just like, I don't care, just tell me what to buy, right? Like there's a reason for a long time Apple only offered an iPhone in like two colors and two variations, right? Now it's very complicated. Same thing with like the iPad line, right? Like there's so many options. People are always asking, like, I don't know which one to get. And it's like, yep, it's kind of hard because like they're all so similar, but like the price, like if you can configure a dual motor max to be almost practically the cost of a tri-motor R1. And so at what point do you go, well, let's just get the tri-motor, right? Like just get that one. It's only a couple $1,000s more.
And what concerns me, sorry, Francie, what concerns me is that a lot of people are new to EVs that are going to get this vehicle. So they don't want to have to think about this stuff. Like they don't want to have to think about LFP and NCM. Like, so that's the only thing that I'm concerned about. But then on the other side, I say, I want options. I want choice. I want people to be able to decide what they want. It's just the fact that the fact that these are electric vehicles and the vast majority of owners, it's their first electric vehicle. It's almost like they should be guided. I used to own a restaurant. I owned a restaurant for 30 years. I had a huge menu. People were complaining, there's too many choices. I'm confused. I cut the menu in half and everybody loved it. And it was like, well, all those items were there before. You could have selected any one of these items. I just eliminated 30 different menu items. But people preferred it. They didn't want to have to spend so much time trying to figure it out. So I hope that doesn't happen, Rivian. I'm not saying it's going to. There's a lot of different options and configurations, and I hope that the Rivian guides or whatever they use to help people, at the centers to help them purchase it, can really explain all that to them, because it can be daunting.
Yeah,
it definitely can be. I think about it also from the other side, Tom, of like your side of owning the restaurant, or Rivian now. They have this big old menu, and now there's a lot of more moving parts, and they are so young. So it makes me think about the production and the manufacturing. And, I haven't built a assembly line or anything, but I imagine that this does add more moving parts. And I wonder about the complexity there, because as an electric startup, you are making sure that, of course, you need to sell more. And maybe this is a strategy, more options, you're going to sell more Rivians, but also to keep down the costs, because if you just have the shorter menu, you're like, I can put this out. I know exactly what goes into it. It's a little more simplistic. What do you think about that?
No, 100%. I mean, I'll say it, and I know people are going to probably torch me about this. I don't think they need a tri-motor. The dual motor is powerful enough. Go dual and quad. Like I hope that engineering it cost so much money for them. From what I'm hearing, it didn't. Like it was actually a simple thing for them to do. But Francie, as you mentioned, anytime you add more complexity to the manufacturing line, it adds cost to everything, not just to that one thing. Even paint colors. I was told by, I think it was BMW once, they're like, if we add a paint color, it adds $10 million onto the cost of production. I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. But like every little incremental option and change you make adds a ton of money down the road. So I don't know. I mean, it was fun to drive, but the dual motor is so powerful as it is. It's kind of like, I don't know if they need that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there comes a point, and I've made it clear, but I think it's like they're just trying to show off, in some ways, like, look what we can do, and look, we have all these options, and like, hey, you can do 0 to 60 in 2.9. Oh, but you want to go even faster? Here's a quad motor, right? Like, and like, it's like now you can do it in 2.4 or whatever. Yeah, and to I've asked, I said, I reached out to Rivian folks. I'm like, doesn't this get complicated? Like, yeah, you're trying to cut things over here. You cut, 1.6 miles off wiring out of the vehicle, blah, blah, but now you're adding all this other complexity. Doesn't it get harder? Like, doesn't this suddenly, everything that you're trying to do, like, it just, yeah, it's really wonky. And like, options are nice, but also not everybody's like this. And I think, I feel like we are a unique group of people here, but like, most people are like, I don't want options. I just want, tell me what to buy. Tell me what to do. Like, just give me what give me what works and call it a day.
Yeah, totally. And so they did change some things with the battery tech and the motor configurations, and you can change the colors, new colors even, and all these kind of moving parts that are very important, but also something that I'd like to talk about that I think is definitely a way that we're going with EVs and driving in general. So you mentioned it briefly, Jose, but the electrical architecture overhaul, so the significantly reduced the number of vehicle controllers and ECUs in the new R1 lineup. And I think that this could impact vehicle reliability a little bit, maybe software updates, make things a little bit more enhanced in how you can control all the moving parts in the R1s, but also the AI and autonomy as well, because of course, can't hear enough about Tesla full self-driving, how we're going to have autonomous vehicles going into the future. Some cars have really great highway assistance and stuff like that, but it seems like Rivian is, with the new autonomy platform, introducing what could be with their, AI capabilities. So I'd love to know your thoughts on, kind of both of those. They kind of go together in my head, like they're the techie technical stuff, but they are a bit distinct. Maybe we'll start with you, Tom.
Yeah. So the new zonal architecture looked fantastic. We got opportunity to see it all laid out there, and they reduced from 17 ECUs down to 7. So they now have only 7, and each one, like, they set the vehicle up in zones. So, they didn't have to, wiring, the way they explain it, didn't have to run across the car to wherever they fit that one ECU. They have, each zone of the vehicle has an ECU, and the wiring connects there. And just think about that, 1.6 miles of wire. I think it was 44 pounds. Just of wiring. So yeah, that's a huge step forward. And the new computing power performs 750 trillion computations per second. That's almost unfathomable to think about. And so well, what's that mean? Well, they said the average new desktop computer can perform about 40 trillion computations per second. So about 8 times more computing power than the average new laptop computer, not laptop, desktop, not laptop, and 10 times more powerful the computing power of, let's say, in my R1S, and Jose, you have an R1T or an R1S, but in your vehicle can perform about 75 trillion computations per second. So it's 10 times faster. So think about how that can crunch data along with the AI assistant. It looks good for the future of, Rivian's ADAS systems. It's got a tremendous amount of computing power.
That I really can't fathom those numbers, honestly. Like, that is so crazy. And we're talking about like building cars around software and data, like that. Feel like opens up the world to where we're going and really kind of puts a quantity on it. But I think if anyone was watching my face just then, I was trying to try to fathom trillions and trillions of computations. Wow, that's
per second,
pretty per second. Yeah, no. Obviously, my brain is slower than that. I can't even picture it. But it is so cool, because if we're thinking about autonomy, we're thinking about all the enhancements. Yeah, we're going to have these in our cars, which is pretty cool. And then were you able to try, Tom, any of the autonomous features, or are they available yet? Or is it just more of what's coming?
Yeah, no, it's more of what's coming. It's still, the ADAS system really, I don't think, improved much. And the more I think about it, it might have been 250 trillion. So if I'm wrong, I know I don't want to have a million comments in the comment stream. I think it was 250 trillion, not 750, but still just a ridiculous amount. So yeah, no, I played with it a little bit when we were on road, but I wasn't on major highways. And I only played with it a little, and it didn't seem really any different than my R1S. I think like, okay, we have the platform ready, and now we're going to start making these incremental improvements in the ADAS. So I don't think that that new system really is any more advanced than what Jose and I have as far as the actual software.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And Jose, I know that you, are kind of a fan of Rivian. You drive one, but you're not blind to any blind spots Rivian might have. And I know that with these updates, there's always something that we wish could have come along. Maybe for Tom, it is the camper stove that should have come along with your R1T. But Jose, was there anything that stood out that you are kind of still waiting to see from Rivian, whether it's big picture or something specific?
So, really, this like the Rivian autonomy, platform, which is what their next gen autonomy system is, really answers a lot of questions and concerns that I had. Right, with Driver Plus, which is what we have right now, Tom and I in our vehicles, like it's pretty, mediocre, to be frank. It's even comparable to Tesla's basic autopilot. It's just, it's not good, right? It doesn't do things very well. And so like, I think this really does answer the question of what's next. But of course, there's still a lot of questions up in the air about it, right? Because like Tom said, he got to, he was there with the vehicles to experience it. But like, as he said, it really wasn't, it's a promise, right? That's all it is still. It's a promise of what's to come. And you should never buy something with the promise of what's to come, right? You should buy it with what it is today. And I want to talk for a second, if you'll let me, Francie, about that, because that's this is a bummer for me. And that is that we were told, as original Rivian owners, that our platform and our vehicles could support technology, for the next 5 years or whatever. It was set and good to go, and it would be able to handle a lot of the future stuff, right? Everything from, being able to have instead of having pre-mapped roads like we do today, just being able to use Driver Plus anywhere we are with highway assist, or being able to have that option where you turn the turn signal on and the vehicle will migrate over to the next lane when it's safe, right? Stuff like that. And then and these are all things that if you visited Rivian's website prior to the refresh announcement, these were statements that they had put up, on their website. Suddenly, overnight, literally one morning, we wake up and all of that promise is kind of gone. Suddenly it becomes, well, I'm sorry to tell you that your vehicle is not really capable of that, right? A vehicle that's been out for 2 years is suddenly not available to be able to do some of the basic stuff that I feel like any ADAS system should be able to perform, right? Lane change or, better handling of adaptive cruise control, whatever. And so that's kind of a bummer, right? It really is a bummer to say, hey, yeah, sorry, look at all this really cool stuff, right? Lane change on command and expanded road coverage and enhanced highway, assist. Yeah, sorry, you're not going to get that in your vehicle because the hardware, it isn't there. But Rivian, you told us it would be there. Ooh, yeah. Oh, that's rough. I don't know what to tell you about that. So anyways, yeah, Generation 2 is great, and you should totally get one because it comes with the new Rivian autonomy platform and blah, blah, blah. And so I've seen this all over my social media. I've seen it on the Rivian Discord and the Reddit. I hang out on all these places. I've had people email me like, are you telling me that my vehicle is suddenly obsolete? Like, and it's like, well, it's not obsolete, but like, yeah, these really cool, more advanced functionality and features, yeah, you're not going to get them. We're not going to get them unless you decide to upgrade, which then leads to the question of, is it worth upgrading just for that? But we can talk about that in a minute. But, so that's kind of a shame. It's sad, a little sad for me to be in that situation. It's different when your phone, right, goes out of, like, you upgrade your phone. It's okay, $1,000, right? You buy a new phone, call it a day. We're talking about a $90,000+ vehicle. here. This is not cheap. This isn't something I can just go and trade in and get my money's worth and then suddenly buy a new one. So it becomes difficult. And like I said, I'm a tech guy. I totally understand that you should never buy anything with the promise of what's to come, but what exists today. But it is very disappointing to see that just 2 years later, we're kind of in this position of like, yeah, sorry, it's not going to work out. And
Yeah,
Tom, I'd
not a
love to hear
lesson
your
that
thoughts
you.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom. Not a lesson you want to learn, right?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You saw a lot of Tesla owners go through this when Tesla, told them, "Oh yeah, this is full self-driving and everything," and then a couple of years later, "Oh no, we have a new full self-driving computer, so guys, you guys can't do full self-driving." They were promised full self-driving. So I'm certainly not surprised. And quite honestly, Jose, even though Rivian said that this new computer has them set up, for the next, 6 to 10 years or whatever, in 4 or 5 years, there's going to be a better computer, a faster computer. Yeah. So, it is tough that it was only 2 years, but you have to understand the vehicle's been out for 2 years. They've been working on it for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
We have a computer that's 6 years old, not 2 years old.
Right.
Right. And that was what was available then. And, to your point, as far as maybe being promised that, you wouldn't need an upgrade or that your computer would be everything. I don't have all the details on that. I don't honestly, I guess I didn't read that on the website. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't correct, but, it's if they crystal clearly said, your onboard hardware is going to carry you over the next, all this, then that's wrong on Rivian. They shouldn't have done that because this isn't like they started working on this last year. I would imagine that they were working on this at the R1 launch 2 years ago. This was already in development, so they knew it was coming, a couple of years down the road. So it would be unfortunate if they were telling people that you wouldn't, this is going to be the hardware that's going to take you to the promised land. And while they were working on something that they knew would be replaced, I would have never believed that in the first place. It's why, I've owned a few Teslas and I've never bought full self-driving because I never believed that it was going to come. And at some point it will, but if I was buying a new Tesla today, I wouldn't pay for it because I still don't think it's going to come anytime soon. Not full self-driving to me is I get in the car and I go to sleep and I wake up when I'm at the place, and that's the only full self-driving I'm interested in. But in any event, that's how I feel about it. Is it a little disappointing to existing owners? Yeah. Have I considered upgrading for it? No. Imagine the beating we would take. You and I both paid over $90,000 for our vehicles. Imagine trading it in and buying it. It would probably take like a $30,000 or $35,000 hit. It's just not worth it for that. There's great improvements. I'd love the heat. We haven't talked about the heat pump. I love the fact that they added a heat pump now. You know what else I love is the electrochromatic roof. That thing's so cool, and I would love to have it. In my vehicle because the roof gets hot in the summer. When it's beaten down. But in any event, that's how I feel about that.
To me, it seems like the improvements that they made, like they might not be complete or full or everything that we want it to be, but if you were choosing between, if you could have any Rivian you want, you might as well go with the new refresh or second generation of the R1 offerings. If you're ready to buy right now, I would love to know if y'all agree, but it sounds like, I don't know, that maybe if you have an R1 anything right now, you might not should update unless you're just curious and you have some money to throw around.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me going, "Hey, there's some really good incentives right now to still get a 2023 R1T right from the Rivian shop or even 24 models." And I've had people reach out and say, "Hey, I can get a great lease deal right on one of these. But now I don't get all that other cool stuff that we now know about. Is it worth it?" It's like, well, that really depends. I can't answer that question. The only question, that's up to you, right? How much more would you be paying if you ended up buying a new 2025 model versus what you're going to be saving there? Is it important to you to have, 4K resolution HDR cameras or advanced driving functionality, in the future, or front accent colors inside your car, right? These are all little things that you're going to have to make a decision yourself. If those things are important to you, then don't get yourself a 2023 model, or lease it for 2 years, and then in 2 years you can upgrade to whatever's next. Yeah.
That's it right there, Jose. I was going to say my recommendation was going to be, if you're going to lease, grab these great lease deals, because they have awesome lease deals. If you're going to lease, do that. But if you're going to buy for the long term, you probably want to pay a little bit extra, because down the road, the resale value of this next generation with all these new goodies is going to be a big difference. So, people are going to be looking for those as used secondhand vehicles, not the first gen that you and I have. So that's what I would tell people, because they had some smoking lease deals. The thing is, like many manufacturers, they want to clear inventory before these new vehicles start coming. They don't like no manufacturer likes to have 2 generations of vehicles on the lot at the same time. It's confusing. No. It's, they had some fantastic deals. I think someone from Francie, didn't someone from Out of Spec lease or buy a Rivian, I think, on those crazy lease deals?
Yeah, Drew from Martian Wheels, who's a friend of Out of Spec,
nice.
he did that. Yeah, so maybe I'll have Drew on. And I think some of the team was considering because these hot lease deals come around. Yeah, oh my God. And I think, automakers are absolutely embracing, okay, I could at least get a good lease, someone to take this off my lot for a couple years, and we could get something from it. So we're seeing great lease deals. I think I agree with y'all. Why not take advantage of a lease right now and then upgrade?
Seriously, I'm looking right now, and in my area here in Orlando, we have 3 R1Ts 2023 models, and all of them are under $600 lease.
Not too shabby.
Yeah.
No. So,
and
for hell of a
I'm just saying that's great. That's great pricing. Yeah.
I think it is a great EV. I think Rivian continues to improve, and I think the heat pump is big. I mean, there's a lot of, like you said, under the surface changes that I think are really significant and show the strategy of Rivian to be competitive in this market. And we will just have to continue to see how many of these are bought, how successfully they continue on, and if their strategy is good. I know that everyone who drives them tends to love them. Specifically, the R1T, I think, is a great way to launch that brand. So thank you both so much for your time. I really appreciated hearing from both your perspectives, and thank you for coming on to the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Have a great rest of your day. And everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Let us know what you think about the second generation of the R1 lineup. Any questions you have, we'll be sure to get to them. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.